It's funny what your brain remembers when it's imploding. For me, it was the click of the beige HR office's thermostat, a useless plastic disc on the wall that hadn't worked since 2014, much like the woman sitting across from me, blinking in fake concern. Effective immediately, she said, sliding an envelope across the table like it was a cease and desist instead of a final paycheck. I didn't open it, didn't need to. I'd been with the company 15 years. I knew the severance policy better than she knew her own lunch order. Per the CFO's request, she added, like that wasn't code for he didn't have the spine to look you in the eye. That man used to call me mission critical when we needed investor trust to cover his budget bloopers. Now, now I was being dismissed like I was a typo in a footnote, and then came the part that will be engraved on my molars when I'm gritting my teeth in the retirement home. Will control the narrative. That's when I knew they had no idea what I really did. They thought investor relations was just press releases and pretty charts. They thought I'd cry, beg, maybe even cause a scene. But I just smiled, a slow, eerie smile that made the intern outside flinch. Oh, and while I have your attention, 97% of folks listening to stories like this don't actually subscribe. That's like eating all the chips and leaving the bag on the floor. So if you enjoy office drama, sweet vengeance, and corporate chaos that smells like stale coffee and crumbling empires, hit that subscribe and tap that like. It seriously fuels the team, and trust me, this story's just getting warmed up. Back to the carnage, I stood. No dramatic slamming of chairs, just the controlled grace of someone who's already 10 steps ahead. The HR rep offered one of those awkward, I know this is hard smiles. Ma'am, what's hard is watching you pretend to be human. Walking out of that office was like walking through a graveyard. Coworkers who used to sing my praises at all hands meetings suddenly found deep spiritual connections with their shoelaces and lukewarm coffee cups. One guy from finance gave me that slow blink of pity I wouldn't wish on a roadkill raccoon. I didn't pack up everything. Just my mug, my nameplate, and one photo of me and my dog from the Christmas Zoom party. What I didn't take was the slim black folder in my bottom drawer, locked with a twist of my old desk key. Inside that folder was the original quarterly report, the one with the real numbers, not the glossed up, spin-dried fantasy the CFO wanted to parade in front of investors, not the surgically edited version that turned a financial hemorrhage into a gentle nosebleed. No, mine had the truth, stripped down and screaming in Excel columns that would keep hedge fund managers up at night. But I left it, on purpose. Let them think they had everything under control. Let them think they'd already changed the locks. Because the one thing about running point on investor relations for 15 years, you don't just write the narrative, you schedule it, you own it, and someone forgot to revoke my admin access. By the time I hit the sidewalk outside, my heart wasn't pounding. It was calculating. And my smile, that wasn't grief. That was the smirk of a woman who just realized they didn't fire her, they freed her. And now the countdown had started. The walk from HR back to my office felt like moving through a wax museum where all the figures just discovered shame. Every head turned, then turned away faster than a politician caught in a Craigslist tab. Even my favorite intern, Sasha, the one I trained to color code stakeholder notes like a damn savant, suddenly became fascinated by the contents of her empty coffee cup. I didn't cause a scene, didn't yank down the mission statement poster or scream about betrayal. That would have given them too much closure. Let them stew in the silence. My nameplate was already gone from the door. Efficient little vultures. Someone must have scraped it off the minute I entered the HR tomb. In its place was a peeling strip of duct tape with the word transitioning scrawled in Sharpie, like I was a budget spreadsheet being phased out. Inside my office, nothing had been touched. Air still smelled faintly of cinnamon gum and printer toner. My inbox was open, still blinking from this morning's urgent, final review of Q3 draft. I guess no one told IT yet, or maybe they assumed I'd go quietly and promptly, like a good little relic. I picked up the few things that actually mattered. The mug with the chip that looked like Ohio. The paperweight shaped like a sinking ship, a gift from my old boss with more foresight than he knew. The framed screenshot of that one earnings call where I made a Morgan Stanley analyst audibly gasp. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Then I opened the bottom drawer. My hand hesitated just a second over the folder. Thin, black, nondescript. Inside, the unedited quarterly report. Raw, brutal, factual. The numbers were ugly in a way makeup couldn't fix, especially not the kind of corporate cosmetics the CFO was applying. $48 million in outflows that didn't trace to any project. A little line item called unallocated special consulting that had all the transparency of a swamp at midnight. I stared at it for a long moment. My fingers almost moved to take it, but no. Let them forget it's here. Let them assume I took everything. Let the poor soul replacing me open that drawer in a week, expecting thumbtacks and post-its, and find a financial pipe bomb with a timestamp. I shut the drawer, turned the lock, slipped the key into the small envelope I'd left on the desk with a post-it that read, in casual cursive, just tying up loose ends. The hallway on the way out felt longer than usual. like the walls had grown ears, eager to listen but too cowardly to speak. A few coworkers looked up from their screens with that strained, teeth-clenched sympathy, the kind people save for funerals and canceled potlucks. Someone tried to say, "If there's anything I can," I raised one eyebrow and kept walking. "No, Brenda, there's nothing you can do. You already liked the CFO's LinkedIn announcement." I passed the wall where my name used to hang next to the annual investor meeting awards. The plaques were still there, but I'd bet anything the new CFO was already planning to rename them Team Achievements or some other buzzword bullshit. As I pushed the elevator button, I caught my reflection in the glass. Not sad, not broken, just still, like a lake right before the storm hits and all the fish start swimming sideways. I didn't feel rage, not yet. That would come later, maybe when they started scrambling. For now, I just felt cold, not in the cruel way, in the clear way. Ice knows where it's going, and I was going home, to finish what they started. Home was quiet, except for the dull hum of the fridge and the low whine of my neighbor's leaf blower chewing the air like it had a grudge against foliage. I set my things on the kitchen counter, dropped my bag by the dog bowl, and poured a glass of wine that was 70% spite and 30% Merlot. Then I opened the laptop. Old, scratched, stickers half peeled, but reliable like me. I booted up the Investor Comms portal, half expecting a 403 access denied screen to greet me like a slap. But nope, there it was, the familiar login page, the same garish teal banner, and my name still sitting pretty in the admin corner like nothing happened. Idiots. I guess the new fresh face was too busy uploading boomerangs of her office chair to remember she wasn't the one who built this system from scratch. I didn't just write the messages, I wrote the scheduling protocols, the access layers, update dependencies. Their shiny new puppet had no idea she was standing on a trapdoor I installed during fiscal year 2012. Once inside, I found it. The quarterly draft version 5.6b sitting smugly in the approval queue, approved by CFO, pending final push. I clicked it open and felt my jaw clench. I've seen more truth in a used car listing. Revenue was steady, expenses managed through proactive initiatives. And as for that $48M in slush-shaped nonsense, not a single mention. Just a footnote about seasonal variances and anticipated consultant partnerships. That's the kind of language that gets printed on a balloon before it explodes. No timestamps, no sources, just euphemisms wrapped in corporate cotton candy. I closed the file without saving and navigated to the backups, the real backups, versions I quietly maintained outside of their performative editing cycles. Because unlike the CFO's pet PR clone, I knew that numbers are sacred. If you twist them too far, they snap back with teeth. I opened my own report, version 4.2R, R for real, finalized 24 hours before my firing. Full ledger breakdown, consultant costs listed down to the cent, project codes, invoice references, a 3-paragraph summary of the $48,137,026.14 in miscellaneous outflows that had no justification on record but plenty of fingerprints, mostly from the CFO's office. I read through it one last time, as carefully as a bomb tech checking the red wire. Then I uploaded it. No edits, no disclaimers, just facts. And when the confirmation screen blinked up, I scrolled down to schedule release. The investor call was at 9 o'clock a.m. sharp, like always, so I set the post to go live at 8:59 a.m., 1 minute before the spin room could get their pants on, 1 minute before anyone could intercept the truth. 1 minute of silence followed by a very public, very irreversible bang. I hit confirm. System responded, scheduled, there it was. Quiet, simple, dangerous. The raw numbers were now locked and loaded, destined for every inbox from BlackRock to Henderson Equity to that aggressive Canadian firm that always asked the rudest questions. No alarm sounded. No revoke notice hit my inbox. IT must have still been sipping cold brew and thinking I was gone quietly into that good night. I closed the laptop, took a sip of my wine, let it coat my tongue like victory. Because here's the thing, they thought they'd erased me from the story, but I was still writing the ending. The hours after scheduling the drop felt like waiting for a thunderclap that only I could hear on the horizon. I didn't pace, didn't refresh every 5 seconds like I was tracking a pizza delivery. No, I waited like someone who already knew the pizza place was on fire and just wanted to see when the smoke hit the sky. The system never kicked me out, not once. No access expired. No unauthorized login attempt. The silence from IT was almost romantic. These were the same guys who used to brag about zero-day threats and how they could detect anomalies instantly. Apparently, a former employee with admin privileges scheduling a public financial disclosure wasn't anomalous enough for their alert filters. That told me everything I needed to know. They didn't understand what I'd done. They hadn't even looked. I made dinner, nothing fancy, just chicken and rice and enough garlic to ward off both vampires and guilt. Took the dog for a walk. Let her sniff every mailbox like we weren't about to set fire to a 7-figure lie. When I got home, I poured another glass of wine and opened LinkedIn. That's when the notification hit. A ping, cheerful and oblivious, new hire just posted for the first time in a while. I clicked it, already guessing what I'd find. Her profile picture was the kind of filtered glow that screams first job confidence and SPF 50 optimism. And there it was. Her caption, beneath a boomerang of her smiling at the investor call prep table like a smug intern at a bake sale. So excited to join the team as we gear up for our biggest quarter yet. Feeling incredibly grateful to be stepping into this amazing opportunity. Red chart, hash new chapter, hash IR life. I nearly spit my wine. Amazing opportunity? Baby girl, you're standing in the middle of a field full of landmines with a selfie stick. You don't even know where the field begins. Her post had likes already. People congratulating her. Former classmates tagging her with "Yes, girl," and "Can't wait to watch you slay." I'd seen this dance 1,000 times, but it still got under my skin like glitter in your bedsheets, not because she got the job. I'd made peace with the knife in my back. Hell, I could give you the model number. No, what stung was the smugness. Parade of borrowed confidence from a company that thought institutional investor management was a vibe and a ring light. What they'd forgotten or never knew was that I didn't get this job by being likable. I kept it by being undeniable, by knowing what numbers could do when you stripped them of fluff and delivered them cold. I clicked back over to the portal, still active, still quiet. The numbers were sleeping for now, but come morning they'd scream. I closed the browser. Let the silence wrap around me like a weighted blanket made of petty satisfaction. Across the city, I imagined the CFO preening for tomorrow's call, maybe rehearsing buzzwords like momentum and strategic alignment in front of a mirror. He probably thought he'd won. Thought he buried me under some HR line about restructuring for agility. They really believed the story was theirs to tell. But tomorrow, the story would start with numbers, mine, and it would end with silence. The kind that breaks careers. I woke before the alarm, didn't need it, my body knew what day it was. Investor call mornings always carried a certain charge, like the air right before lightning strikes, but this one was different. No blazer, no badge, no parking garage full of Teslas and lies. Just me, barefoot in an oversized hoodie, standing in the kitchen with the kind of focus that only comes after betrayal sharpens your senses like a whetstone. I poured coffee. Black, no sugar, let it sting. My laptop came to life with a quiet hum, its screen flickering into the investor portal dashboard, still logged in. Still mine. Somewhere in the company's fortress of beige cubicles, the new girl was probably using her lunch break to find the semicolon key. But I didn't care about her anymore. I cared about the numbers. I opened the system report. There it was, time-stamped, irreversible, delicious, 8:59 a.m., distribution triggered, and just beneath it, opened by 37 institutional recipients. Goldman Sachs, Fidelity, Vanguard, even the cranky guy from Aberdeen Global whose email always had too many exclamation points. They had it. They were reading it right now. Page 1 of the report hit like a frying pan. $48,137,026.14 in untagged outflows. Page 2, line items that hadn't been scrubbed or softened. Page 3, the source data log with trailing notes that led like a neon breadcrumb trail straight to the CFO's door. And that was just the first few pages. There were 42 in total. I took a slow breath. My heart wasn't racing. It was steady, focused, like a sniper's finger on the trigger after the rifle's already aligned. This wasn't sabotage. This was clarity. This was what happens when you tell someone will control the narrative, and forget that for the last 15 years, she wrote the damn narrative. Built it, maintained it, tested every word for impact before feeding it into the mouths of overpaid executives who couldn't spell fiduciary without a slide deck. And now they were naked in front of the very people they needed most. No spin, no soft lighting. Just raw, ugly truth delivered with the surgical precision of someone who knew exactly how much pain each decimal would inflict. I didn't smile. This wasn't about gloating. This was about gravity finally doing what it always promised to do, pull liars down. I sat back in my chair, sipping coffee that had gone cold, watching the open rate tick up. 37 became 42. Someone in Boston had already clicked through to the appendix. Another user from a West Coast hedge fund had downloaded the full PDF. Twice. I imagined the CFO, still in hair and makeup for the Zoom call, prepping his little transformation quarter monologue while the ground quietly gave way beneath him. The trap was set, and I wasn't going to move a muscle. 9 o'clock a.m. sharp. The call began, well, technically. The screen flickered to life. The same sterile investor briefing background I'd seen 1,000 times, complete with the company logo hovering in the upper right corner like a smug watermark of failure. The participant list populated with familiar names, private equity firms, institutional giants, a few nosy analysts who lived for drama and dividend forecasts. But this time, there was no banter. No good to see you, Jim, or how's Palm Beach, Marcy. Just silence. Heavy, wet silence, the kind you feel in your throat like humidity before a tornado. I kept my mic muted, camera off, face blank. Usually these things opened with the CEO's perfunctory thanks followed by the CFO launching into the report, his voice all confidence and buzzword salad. Synergies, operational agility, shareholder value. I once heard him describe a $10 million screw-up as a temporary misalignment of forecast cadence. Man had a gift for vomiting glitter. But today, he wasn't there. His name was on the call list. His little gray bubble sat at the top. But he hadn't spoken. Not a breath, not a clearing of the throat, not even one of those fake chuckles he used when prepping a weak earnings season like it was a stand-up routine. 3 full minutes passed with nothing but the occasional shuffle of someone adjusting their mic. Then another voice, one of the sharper analysts from Bridgewater, unmuted, voice dry and unimpressed. Will we be hearing from the CFO, or should we start submitting written questions now? Another voice chimed in, this one clipped, British, probably from the London office of one of the banks. We've reviewed the published results. Some of the disclosures are unclear. Is clarification coming? Still no reply. The moderator, poor Carol from IR, who once cried in a stairwell over a mislabeled chart axis, tried to step in. Thank you everyone for joining. We're just waiting on the CFO to connect his audio. One moment, liar. The CFO was connected. I could see him on the participant list. He was just frozen, maybe staring at the same numbers they were, watching his perfectly curated illusion unravel like a badly knitted sweater. Every line item a thread yanked loose by people whose entire job was to sniff out inconsistencies and quietly call their brokers. Someone rustled papers. Someone else coughed. Still no opening remarks. I sat at my kitchen table, completely still, coffee cup half lifted, heart rate like a metronome. Not slow, not fast. Just present. This was the breath before the scream. The charged stillness before a dam breaks and swallows the valley. I glanced again at the participant count, 116 and climbing. They were all there, watching, waiting, refreshing PDFs, comparing this quarter's report to last's, reading between the numbers, finding the cracks, and the man responsible for explaining them speechless. This wasn't just a tech delay or a muted mic. This was fear, paralysis. A man faced with the truth he couldn't spin, and an audience trained to spot the blood in the water. And I was the shark in the deep, smiling in silence. A soft chime announced the arrival of another participant, probably some late hedge fund goon who'd just finished skimming the report and wanted front row seats to whatever this was rapidly becoming. Still, the CFO hadn't said a word. His little Zoom bubble remained gray and silent, taunting the rest of the panel like a drunk uncle passed out at Thanksgiving dinner. Then finally, someone spoke. Not Carol, not the CEO, not even the stammering head of comms trying to buy time with "we're experiencing a few technical hiccups." No, it was him, the chairman. His voice dropped like a guillotine. Can someone please explain why our official release says $48 million in unexplained outflows? No inflection, no panic, just ice, the kind of corporate tone that follows firings, settlements, and polite threats involving federal auditors. And then nothing. Absolutely nothing. 60 seconds passed, then 70, then 90. You could almost hear the realization crawling across the room like a spider across silk. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't an intern screw-up. This was real, permanent, published. They'd posted the wrong report, except it wasn't wrong. It was just true. The CFO was still silent. I imagined him sitting in his office, fingers hovering over the keyboard, wondering if he should fake a Wi-Fi outage or just pull the fire alarm. The man once held a 30-minute earnings call during a market crash without blinking, but now, faced with an actual number and a simple question, he folded. All those years of swagger, all those metrics manipulated into magic tricks, dissolved under the weight of one unspinnable line item. I watched it unfold from my kitchen table, spoon deep in a tub of Greek yogurt I wasn't even tasting. And I smiled, not a smug grin, not an evil laugh, just a soft, private curve of the lips, the kind you give when the universe finally catches up with the people who think they're smarter than gravity. They thought I was disposable. They thought I'd walk away and let them rewrite the ending. But I didn't need revenge. I just needed the truth to be loud enough. And right now, was echoing through every Bluetooth headset on that call. 2 minutes of pure, career-ending silence. The longest 2 minutes of that man's life, and the most satisfying of mine. The CFO finally unmuted himself around the 2:03 mark, and his voice cracked like a dropped wine glass. Yes, thank you, Chairman. That particular line item refers to transitional consultant costs and, deferred initiatives associated with legacy systems integration. Jesus, even he didn't believe what he was saying. You could hear it in the way he paused between buzzwords, trying to build a parachute out of jargon mid-fall. I'd heard better explanations from teenagers caught sneaking out after curfew. And the investors, they pounced. Which systems exactly? Someone from JP Morgan snapped. Was this disclosed in the previous quarter's guidance? Asked the guy from CalPERS, voice tight with suspicion. Why are these consultants unnamed in the appendix? Came a calm, slow drawl from a firm in Austin that once pulled out of a merger over a misplaced semicolon. The CFO tried to volley back with filler. We're confident in our strategic direction, and these figures reflect a forward-looking investment, but the energy had shifted. No one was buying it. No one was playing nice. He started reading directly from a document, probably the fluff draft he thought had gone live. His voice stumbled, words misaligned with the numbers staring everyone in the face. You could almost hear the spreadsheet tabs opening in the background, the frantic math, the flipping through last quarter's call notes, people connecting dots that should have never been on the same page. I toggled to the market feed. The stock had dipped 3% within the first 5 minutes of the call. By minute 10, it was down 6.4%. Not crashing, not yet, but slipping like a car on ice, tires spinning, no traction in sight. I took another sip of coffee, now lukewarm and perfect. There was a strange calm in my chest, not adrenaline, not revenge ecstasy, just peace. This was it, my part was done. I wasn't some shadowy hacker. I hadn't planted viruses or doctored files. All I'd done was stop protecting them. I let the numbers speak. I gave the truth its moment, and now it was burning down their stage. Let them scramble. Let them circle back and clarify their position and call emergency PR firms before the market closed. None of it mattered, because it was already in the bloodstream now, the fear, the distrust, the sickening realization that the person who made them look trustworthy was gone, and the person in her place was tweeting gifs and praying for do-over. And me? I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. No press interviews, no LinkedIn posts, no cryptic tweets. Didn't need a spotlight, I had the receipts. The unraveling had begun, and I was already somewhere else watching the thread snap. Apologies, a new voice cut in, deep, composed, and carrying the weight of someone who controlled entire retirement funds with a single sentence. This is Stephen Blackwell, representing our institutional clients holding approximately 12.4% of the float. Every other voice vanished. We'll be taking this discussion offline. Just like that, the air got vacuumed out of the call. It was a line you didn't come back from. Not a request, not an invitation, a verdict. It meant lawyers. It meant boardroom doors closing hard. It meant someone in that office was about to be offered early retirement with an NDA stapled to it. The CFO muttered something about happy to clarify offline like a man watching his own obituary being drafted. The screen stuttered, cameras froze, and then, as if the platform itself wanted to be done with the whole mess, the call unceremoniously ended. No closing remarks, no thank you for your continued trust, just a pixelated cliff where a company's credibility used to stand. I sat in my kitchen, letting the silence settle. My coffee had gone stone cold, but it didn't matter. I refreshed the market feed with one hand, barely blinking, and there it was. Ticker halted. Reason, pending material disclosure. Those 4 words were a death knell in corporate speak, the SEC equivalent of sirens in the distance. Somewhere in that office, phones were ringing. HR was scrambling. Lawyers were blinking at screens, and Carol from IR, probably crying into her HR-mandated ergonomic keyboard. They'd figure it out soon enough that it wasn't a leak, not a breach, no angry email or messy whistleblower letter. It was just me, doing what they hired me to do, tell the truth. They told me they'd control the narrative, that they'd decide how the story would end, that I was replaceable, forgettable, part of a strategic shift. But the numbers didn't forget, and neither did I. This wasn't a revenge story. It was an audit, a final line item that couldn't be moved, massaged, or buried in consultant fees. I closed the laptop, leaned back, let out a long, slow breath that felt like an entire fiscal year exhaled. Let them try to spin this. It's already written, and this time it's permanent. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.